Okay, disclaimer for everyone that we are now recording. For recording purposes, Tracy, can you do the speaker view on the recording?
Okay.
Okay, well, hello everyone. For those of you I don't know, I think I know everyone, but for those of you who I don't know, I am Stephanie Lieb. I am pleased to serve as your chair for this 2025-2026 bar year. It's going to be a great year. And it's going to be a great year in large part because of you all. You all are the executive council of the business law section, and as such, you are the workhorses of our 6,500 member organization. The purpose of this orientation is really just to give you a sense of what you're doing this year. Just turn that off because it keeps dinging. And what your role is in the section and what kind of give you set your expectations of what is expected of you in your role as either chair, vice chair, judicial chair, academic chair. We have a lot to cover over the next hour, and I'm going to try to get us done in an hour. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And if we can answer them in real time, we will. And if not, we will get you an email to answer your questions. Okay, so let's get started. I think I'd like to start with giving you an overview of the section and how it fits into the big bar and what we do as a section. For a lot of you, you're going to know this already, but for some of our newer folks, so particularly our vice chairs and second vice chairs, I think this might be new information for you. So the business law section is one of many sections of the Florida Bar. We are one of the largest sections. By last count, we had 6,565 members. That was like a couple weeks ago. The largest section of the Florida Bar is the real property, probate, and trust law section, but they have two sections in one, so they're really cheating when we say they're the largest. But the business law section, the trial lawyer section, the family law section are three other, of the largest sections of the Florida Bar. We function under the Florida Bar, but we function fairly autonomously. We are our section is a member of the Council of Sections, and we communicate and coordinate with other sections of the Florida Bar through the Council of Sections, but otherwise we kind of operate autonomously. We are run by an executive council, that's you all. And in turn, the executive council is run by an executive committee. The executive committee is comprised of me as your chair, Peter Valori as your chair-elect, Robert Barron as your treasurer, Woody Pollock as your secretary, and Greg Yadley, who is the chair of long-range planning. Because we're business lawyers, we, as a section, are governed by a set of bylaws. Our bylaws can be found on the website, and the business of the section is done at the meetings, theoretically in compliance with the bylaws. But the work of the section is done by the committees and task forces at the committee and task force level. The executive committee of the executive council is here to help you get your work done, but really gives kind of minimal oversight. The section itself is organized into substantive committees and standing committees and task forces. And the best way to understand that is really to look on our website, because Tracy does a good job of organizing us that way on the website. So it's easy to conceptualize it that way. We have substantive committees like bankruptcy UCC, blockchain and digital assets, business litigation, computer law and technology, corporations and securities, and intellectual property. Those are our substantive committees. We also then have a number of task forces that are substantive in nature and some that are more what we'll call standing in nature. So we just added a new task force called Direct versus Derivative Task Force. But we have other task forces like financial literacy. We have one on restrictive covenants. Those are created on an ad hoc basis for a particular need. And when that need is satisfied and the work is completed, it is dissolved. At our last meeting in Boca in June, we dissolved 2 task forces who had completed their work. So that's on the substantive side. And on the standing side, we have a number of standing committees. The Executive Council is a standing committee. Pro Bono is a standing committee. Communications, CLE, Labor Day, IMF, which is Inclusion Mentoring and Fellowship. Those are all standing committees, but we have a number of other standing committees. So that's the kind of overview of the organization of the section. As a section, we have a number of focuses, and they really kind of fit into our substantive and standing committees and task forces. But I think the big 3 of what we do are CLE, legislation, and professional development. We put on dozens of CLEs every year, and those CLEs are typically cutting edge issues affecting the community, the business community in our state. We have a number of signature programs. We have IP Symposium that is in the spring every year. We have the Federal Securities Institute, which is usually February every year. We have Legislative Update, and we have View from the Bench, which is always in November. That's a bankruptcy one. It's always in November. So in addition to that, and I don't want to steal Carly's thunder because she's going to talk about CLE shortly, but each of the substantive committees and task forces are asked to present a minimum number of CLEs every year to fulfill that piece of what we do. The second piece of what we do is pursue in both a proactive way and a reactive way legislative positions that really change the landscape of business law in our state. And Amy and Woody are going to talk about that process and how that works shortly. And lastly, we focus on professional development and networking. And that's my favorite part of who we are and what we do through all of the initiatives that we undertake. I think we build pretty meaningful, long-lasting relationships with each other. We've got 6,500 people in lawyers, state and federal judges, and academics across the state in our organization. But all of the work that we do is because of you all, right? You all are the ones who are rolling up your sleeves and getting it done every year. And in addition to you all, we have 2 superstars who are on our Zoom today. That's Tracy Eller. Tracy, please wave at the people. There you go. Tracy runs all the communication for our section, and she maintains our website, and all those newsletters that you get would not happen without Tracy doing all the things she does and all the magic she does behind the scenes to make that happen. And then you have Carly Hopkins. Carly is here somewhere.
Hi.
There she is. And Carly is our section administrator. And Carly, that means she's the boss of all of us. And we all need to do exactly what Carly tells us to do. But she is the glue that holds our section together. So if you see these ladies at Labor Day coming up, please thank them for all that they do. All right, so that's kind of an overview in a nutshell of what we do. Greg Yadley is typically here to report on long-range planning and what they do. He is unavailable today, gallivanting across the world. So I'm going to read to you what he has shared with me and wanted you to know. He says, the Long Range Planning Committee is comprised of nearly 36 former chairs of the business law section. The Executive Council benefits from the sustained involvement of these distinguished lawyers and judges who bring their familiarity with section issues, decades of judgment and stature within the legal community to the current work of the section. The fundamental task of the Long Range Planning Committee is to assure continued strong and capable section leadership and promote the development of future section leaders. We take this charge quite seriously, and we are pleased that we have so many worthy and dedicated section members who believe in the importance of service to the profession and a dedication to to continue to make Florida a hospitable state for the conduct of business. Our most recent accomplishment, and one of which the committee is very proud, was to present the slate of nominees for section leadership for the 25-26 bar year. For our committee's 2 virtual meetings this past May, 18 members were present, including our newest member and immediate past BLS chair, Mark Stein. Our recommendations were unanimously approved by the Executive Council at its annual meeting this past June. In addition to the officers and the substantive law committees, the committee pays close attention to the staffing of the legislation committee and other important committees and task forces represented by you today. Service on these bodies is an important way to demonstrate leadership and to become familiar with the work of the substantive sections beyond your primary area of legal practice. This work promotes an in-depth understanding of how the section functions and provides ample opportunity for leadership. The committee also strives to achieve broad representation in all practice areas, size and nature of law firms, and geographies. Our objective is to develop a leadership pathway by providing young lawyers, including those in small firms, significant service projects, and opportunities to contribute beyond their individual legal specialties and geographic practice areas. Our goal is to demonstrate that collaborative service for the benefit of our profession and citizens and business of Florida is its own reward. We hope that you will relish the opportunity to work together, to attend meetings, and the amazing retreats we have, for most of us, have led to deep and enduring professional and personal friendships. That's from the chair of our Long Range Planning Committee, Greg Gadley. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to ask Michelle Moss to speak with us about sponsorship.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to give you a little overview of what we're doing in marketing, promotions, and sponsorships. First thing, I wanted to let you know that our goal is to double our sponsorships amount this year. Last year's total was $264,500. We're currently $227,000 collected. We have $254,500 pledged. So if we collect everything pledged, we'll be only 10 grand short of that. So we're way far of that because we still have a lot of money to go and collect. One thing we want to do this year is ensure we have 100% participation on the EC members and firms as far as sponsorship of the section. So we have plenty of sponsorship opportunities remaining. So this is not over. I don't know. Can I share, Stephanie, real quick?
I'd be happy if you would share your screen.
Okay. All right.
Tracy, can she share her screen?
Yeah, I think it's working. So can everyone see the sponsorship levels there? So those are our annual. So the way our sponsorships work, we have Labor Day retreat specific sponsorships, and then we have our annual section sponsorships. And what you're looking at here are our annual section sponsorship levels. So we have Legacy, Diamond, Sapphire, and Emerald. And if anyone is interested, I'm not going to go into all the benefits that come with each of those sponsorship levels, but there's different benefits that come with each of those levels. In addition to that, those are the annual section sponsorships. We have the Labor Day retreat specific sponsorships, which are a little less than that. So these are specific to the Labor Day retreat. So we have the platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. So we literally have from $1,000 all the way up to $15,000. So we have a broad range for your firms to participate. In addition, for the first time this year, we're going to have executive council retreat sponsorship opportunities. And those are at 1,500, 1,000, 750, and 500. So as low as 500. So your firms can sponsor the section in some form or fashion this year for as low as $500, and again, all the way up to $15,000. We are looking for some firms to co-sponsor the 10K Alley, which this year for the retreat, which is obviously August 29th through September 1st at the JW Marriott, Marco Island. We are going to have the entertainment space, 10K Alley, which has the mini bowling. It has video games. There's pool tables. There's a bar. In order to get that area to ourselves or at least partially shut down. We're looking for some individual sponsorships for that. The minimum sponsorship for that is going to be $8,000. So if any of your firms are still have not sponsored and are interested in participating at that level, we would appreciate it. We have one firm sponsoring right now, which is Morgan & Morgan. We're looking to get at least 4 or 5 other sponsors at 8,000, 4 at 8,000, or more at a higher level at $8,000 or $10,000, so that we can get that space. So there's plenty of opportunities for sponsorship at all different levels, and we really need 100% participation from all the EC member firms to make this happen. So with that, I will turn it back over to Stephanie.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. All right, we are going to move on to.
Stephanie, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Larry.
This is Larry Kuhn, and I have a question for Michelle. So I joined JAMS this past month, and it's in the process of being publicized. And I've already talked to them about the fact that they are a major sponsor of the annual convention, but they are not a sponsor of anything the business law section does. They set their budget on an annual basis, and they are very interested in getting their name out to the business law section based on all the activities I've told them. Is there a way that you could provide some more detail as to what each sponsorship, what it gets them, what the different levels are, like that, but during this year, because it's already too late for this year, because they've set their budget.
Okay.
For next year, when they set their budget for next year, they told me get as much information as I can, and this sounds like an entity that they want to get involved in.
Yes, I can do that, Larry. We have our 2025-2026 BLS sponsorship opportunities brochure, and it's about, I don't know, 27 pages long. So it goes into great detail. I just showed you the summary, but
Yeah.
for each of those sponsorship levels, there's a whole page that shows all of the benefits that go along with that. So I can provide you with a copy of that, if that would
If
work.
you could, I would
Okay.
like to get it to them sooner than later.
Absolutely.
Because I talked to them about the different Florida entities that, other than the annual convention, that there are opportunities with, and this was the one that they seemed the most interested in, because of the breadth of what the business law section does with litigation, IP, technology, et cetera. And they said, yeah, we absolutely would like to do that. Get us the information as soon as possible.
Great. I will get that over to you today.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Sure.
Thank you both. Okay, Amy and Woody, you all are up to talk about the legislation process, and I hope you'll cover how incredibly successful you have been this past year.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. Well, we'll start with that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Woody Pollack. I currently have the honor of being the secretary of the section. I practice at Schutz & Bowen in Tampa. What it means that I'm the secretary is that last year I was the chair of legislation, the chair of the legislative committee, and the successes Stephanie is referring to is driven in large part by the hard work of all the members of the section, all the people of the executive council, and most importantly, Amy Diaz-Lyon and Doug Bell, our legislative consultants or lobbyists who really are the magic behind the scenes and in front of the scenes that do all the hard work. That success is last year we advanced 4 affirmative priorities for pieces of legislation, and out of the 200 or 300 so bills that made it into law, 4 of those were ours. So all 4 of them made it across the finish line. 4 out of 4. For those of you who didn't hear this joke before, in football terms, that's a grand slam home run. So complete success. Let me now give you the presentation about what the Legislative Committee is, and as Stephanie mentioned, it's one of the most important things that the section does throughout the year, it really is, at least for me, and my kind of coming up through the section was really where I got a lot of hands-on great experience to kind of see the real power of what the section can do, what our power is, what our influence is, and how it can impact our clients and our respective practices for what we do. You'll notice the first thing about, Stephanie told me I have 3.5 hours for this presentation, so there's only 427 slides, so get ready. And then I got to share at the beginning of this, one of my favorite things to do is crack jokes when I'm giving Zoom presentations and you can't see people reacting, but I'm going to presume that each and every one of you is laughing heartily at each and every one of my jokes. The first thing to notice is the slide deck was prepared by Met's husband. That's Amy and Doug. They do all the hard work. If you haven't gotten an opportunity to work with them before, you're going to love getting an opportunity to work with them when you get involved with legislative activity. It truly is an honor to get to do so, and they really are best in the business. So how does the Legislative Committee for the Florida Bar Business Law section work? To understand that, we need a little bit of context to understand what the section is. And to understand that, we need to understand kind of what the limits are of what we can do and what we can't do. First, and forgive me to the extent this is a refresher to many, if not all of you, but the Florida Supreme Court is who controls us. The Florida Supreme Court has exclusive jurisdiction over regulation of admission of practice of law, as well as discipline of persons that practice law. And we, as the Florida Bar, are an administrative arm of the Supreme Court. With that comes certain obligations or responsibilities. The Florida Bar itself is what's called a unified bar. This means we all must pay to be members of it, and that means that limits the things the Florida Bar is able to do from a legislative perspective. Our legislative activity is limited because we have lots and lots of members that have to pay to be members of this organization in order to benefit from its benefits. The Supreme Court has rules regulating the bar to establish and maintain and supervise a program that advocated for proposed or contemplated changes to the law. The Legislation Committee of the Business Law section is here to make sure that the rules are followed and to help BLS members navigate through that process. The Florida Bar itself has a general counsel's office. They do a number of things from our perspective, from a legislative committee perspective. The Florida Bar Legislative Committee staffing is managed through them. The legislative program is staffed by the general counsel. Ms. Gypsy Bailey is available to help voluntary groups like the BLS with a variety of things. And what I found is if you ever have a question, or you ever have a concern, the best thing to do is reach out to the chair of the Legislation Committee, who is Deneen Waslick, or Amy Diaz-Lyon, and you'll find that both of them, as well as the other vice chairs, Marianne and Russell, whom I'll introduce in just a little bit, all super responsive and all can answer any questions that you have throughout the bar year. The Florida Bar itself has 3 legislative positions. I have them on the screen. I will not read them to you, but what I want you to notice is it's a small list. Remember, the Florida Bar is a unified bar, so its activities that it can do legislatively is limited. So it has 3 legislative positions. I'm going to show you in a few minutes the business law section's legislative positions. And I'm not going to tell you right now, but I want you to think in your head whether you think we have more than 3 or less than 3. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to read them, and it fills a whole screen. And so maybe your guess would be that we have more than 3. The Legislative Committee, I've got our motto or our objective of what we do up on the screen. We're charged with overseeing legislation. We work with the subcommittees, the substantive committees, the task forces to help propose legislation, to deal with their proposed legislation, to help in the creation of the documents that go with that legislation, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then to work both with the Executive Council to advance the triple motion. You've heard about what that is, and hopefully you'll leave this presentation with a better understanding of what that is. And then through the legislative session to work with Amy and Doug and the legislature to help advance our priorities. We don't just advance priorities, we also pay attention to what the legislature is doing. And so through the Legislative Committee and through Amy and Doug come new bills that come in that might impact the substantive areas or task forces that we deal with. And so there is a kind of shepherding or marshaling and coordination of laws that are being proposed and discussed in the state of Florida and how that might impact our purview and how we can be responsive to that. Most important part of this slide is that link at the very bottom. If you ever have a question about legislation, the Legislative Committee, that link is a tremendous amount of resources. There's information. What is a triple motion? How do I draft a white paper? How do I help draft legislation? What are the times of the legislative session? Who can I contact if I have a question? I encourage you to use that website. It's very helpful. Lots of great information. So here is the leadership. The chair, you'll notice, so Deneen is the chair. If you haven't met her, she's fantastic. You can tell she's a great chair because she's not here giving this presentation and has forced me to do it because last year when I was the chair, I was unavailable and I forced her to do it. So we are now square on that. Deneen is off working very hard, I understand, enjoying the fjords of Norway. First Vice Chair, Marianne Doris, super great, super responsive. Russ Landy, super great, super responsive. And then Professors Davis and Cohen. And I've mentioned Doug and Bell a couple of times. This slide is fantastic. You'll see the contact information for these people at the end of the presentation. Reach out to any and all. If you ever have a question, the kind of rule of the road is being super responsive. A rule of the road from the legislative committee out to all of you is if we're asking you for something, please be responsive in getting it back to us. And the counter of that is if you have a question and you reach out to us, we will be, and by we I mean the legislative committee, will be super responsive in responding to whatever your question is to help you get whatever it is you're looking for. Our meetings. The Legislative Committee has 3 in-person meetings, one at the annual convention, then Labor Day, and then the winter meeting. So we have an in-person meeting coming up, the Labor Day retreat, in just a few weeks. In advance of each of the in-person meetings, we have a virtual meeting, usually about 2 weeks beforehand, to prepare for the in-person meetings. Oftentimes, like for example, the Labor Day retreat that's coming up, we would anticipate some triple motions, which require a bit more work and preparation, and we try and talk at that virtual meeting before the in-person meetings to see what triple motions are coming so that we can make sure the Executive Council is ready to deal with them, the Executive Committee is ready to deal with them, and to make sure all the other committees and task forces are getting an opportunity to weigh in. During the third bullet point, during the legislative session itself, we meet once a week. And that meeting is to talk about our legislative priorities, talk about other legislation that has come up, talk about your questions from the various subcommittees and, committees and task forces. And it's those meetings are usually run very efficiently. Amy runs them very efficiently to kind of get to the point of what we want to know and what you want to learn. And then the final point, legislation is kind of a flexible thing. Sometimes emergencies happen, sometimes things happen quickly, and that responsiveness point I brought up, we periodically have meetings as needed, either as a full committee or targeted on the various task force or subcommittees that are dealing with some piece of legislation. I mentioned the website before. I mentioned all of the various great tools that are there. I encourage you to use that website if you are new to the legislative process in the state of Florida or being involved with the business law section's legislative activities. This really is a great resource when you have those questions. What does that white paper, what does a white paper look like? Can I see a sample? This is a really good way to get started. Legislative activity, the Florida Bar has, I trust you all know what SBP is, and I definitely knew what it was when Amy gave me this slide deck, and I definitely didn't go and Google it and learn for myself that it means standing board policy. I know that you guys all knew that, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one who got to learn that today. That limits what it is that, or describes what it is for legislative activity when we, the section, want to do something legislative. If we're taking a position on legislation, if we're writing an amicus brief, these are things that are going to require some work, including our triple motion process, to make sure that we're falling within the confines of what it is we're allowed to do and making sure to honor those rules in the law. So how does some piece of legislation that you or your task force or your committee come up with become a piece of law? I'm obligated by law here to sing Schoolhouse Rock's How I Became a Bill. I'm going to save you from that because my singing voice is not great. But the process starts by getting through the Executive Council. That's step one. And you're going to see step one there really is a number of 6 or 8 steps to get through the work to get through the Executive Council. Once it gets through the Executive Council of the business law section, we then need to go to the big bar and get their approval because we are a section of the big bar, and so they have to kind of say yes or no for what we're doing. And then assuming we get through the big bar, once through the big bar, we as the legislative committee also have to then help get the legislation through the legislature. And that involves working with the legislators themselves, their staff, having the committee people and the task force people involved with the kind of subject area knowledge, testify as needed, and helping to coordinate and work through that process. So let's look in a little bit more detail at that step one, how we get through the Executive Council. This is where the real work of the business law section is done from a standpoint of advancing legislation or defending against legislation or commenting on legislation to some degree. If you're advancing some legislation, obviously you're going to have to draft the words. So drafting up some statute, some language is going to come out of a task force or a committee. In connection with that, or once you and your group have come to what the legislation looks like, you'll need to draft a white paper. The white paper is designed to explain the law to everyone who's going to be reading about it. And that's going to be other substantive task forces that belong to the business law section. It's going to be the executive council that's going to read it so they can understand the legislation as it goes through. It could be other bar sections or members who are interested in the legislation. And it could be the legislators themselves and their staff as they consider how they're going to advance it through the legislature. The other thing, the third piece of work product, when you've got this piece of law, is drafting the triple motion language so that that can be distributed to the executive council for its vote. There are resources. Deneen is the chair, and Marianne and Russell is the vice chair and second vice chair, as well as Amy and Doug can help drafting with that triple motion language, and you'll see some examples on the website. But that top row, those are the three key things you're going to need to advance something: the language itself, a white paper, and the triple motion. Then from a process standpoint, you need to kind of float your legislation, not just in the committee that it's emanating from, but all the other task forces and committees, so that everyone that has participation in the section can weigh in and be aware of it and see if it raises any concerns, so that if their membership, the people that are active in different committees, have thoughts on your legislation, it gives an opportunity for everyone to weigh in and comment and adjust the law before it gets itself out of the business law section. The way we try to do that is notice every other substantive committee, provide them your statutory language and white paper, and then have someone try and appear at the other substantive committee or task force meetings as appropriate to be able to answer questions and present the law, so that the other task forces or committees who might not be familiar with what you're doing can hear from one of the people behind it to get a sense of what is looking to be done. Finally, the legislation is presented to the legislative committee itself. This usually happens at one of those virtual meetings before the in-person meetings. And then that white paper, the triple motion, the language itself are provided to the executive committee and the executive council in advance of the meeting so that it can be voted on. And how it gets voted on. This is the famous triple motion. If you've been to a meeting, you've heard the words triple motion. You might not have known what those mean at the first time, and maybe the first time you heard that, you're like, wait, I only heard one triple motion. Don't we have to hear three things if it's a triple motion? No, that's not what it means. The motion itself is accomplishing three objectives. It's making sure that the legislative activity we are doing comports with the rules that govern us. First, is it within our jurisdiction? Is it something that relates to what the business law section does? That's part one. Part two, are we making sure we're not violating some other scope obligation? Or if we're dealing with something that the Florida Bar has taken a position on, are we being consistent with how the bar is saying we're supposed to do stuff? And then finally, we try and stay out of politics as best we can. Does the issue avoid deep philosophical or emotional division? If so, good for us. If it doesn't, if it's something that could have deep philosophical division, then it's not going to be something we're going to be able to advance, and so it would fail the triple motion in that regard. Otherwise, if we do satisfy all three things, we can pass that triple motion, the executive council votes on it, and then it gets sent along to the Florida Bar for their approval. The process the Florida Bar takes is essentially, step one, make sure we complied with the triple motion obligations. Is it within our purview? Does it not conflict with the bar position? And does it avoid deep philosophical divide? If so, go through the process that the Florida Bar needs to go to at step two. And then finally, circulate notice to other sections. And that way other sections get an opportunity to weigh in. And we here at the business law section hear from other sections when they're advancing law. We have another section, the criminal law section right now, looking to advance something, who has recently reached out to us to follow this same process. Finally, once we get through that hurdle, the business law section has approved the triple motion. The Florida Bar has approved the position, and now we've got to go work with the legislature. That is really where the rubber meets the road. Amy and Doug do tons of hard work there, and when they reach out with questions, we respond quickly. And that we there is the legislative committee and everyone involved with it who's got the subject matter and can weigh in. And then hopefully we get to a point where the legislation gets to a position we like it and gets passed. I mentioned the business law section's legislative positions. I mentioned the Florida Bar has 3 of them. You can see we have a few more than 3 of them. I have decided, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read those to you. They are available on the website. It is important to note that these positions, we have them for 2-year periods, and these positions will sunset this coming summer. So one thing each committee and task force, anyone that's got such a legislative position will likely do as we're approaching the summer, will be asked to renew or change or weigh in on what their legislative positions will be. And that would advance through the legislative committee as well by sharing that information. One thing I should have mentioned when I talked about the triple motion, I think it is important, particularly for those of you who are new to being on the executive council. If you are a chair or a vice chair of a committee or a task force, you have a vote on the executive council. And it's important for you to know that that's an important vote, that when we pass triple motion, certain number of us have to participate and vote on it, and you are the people that have to vote on it. So just because you're new, don't think that means you're left out of this. If you're in a vice chair position or a chair position, you have a vote. If you have a question about whether or not you have a vote, reach out to me or anyone else on this call or the executive committee, and we'll be more than happy to answer that for you. But it is important that part of your responsibility is to vote when you're asked to do so. This next legislative session will be an early session. I'll show you the calendar in just a minute. We're currently looking at these legislative issues. A Chapter 16 modernization dealing with nonprofits, a Trademarks Modernization Act dealing with, as you might guess, trademarks, some law dealing with voluntary trial resolution or private judging, some law dealing with some non-judicial foreclosure, and I'm sure there's going to be some AI legislation that will come through. This bullet point on the right is an important point to keep in mind. Other issues are going to come up. And the business law section, I like to quote Voltaire here, or maybe it was Borat, I forget, but with great power comes great responsibility. The section has decades of experience advancing and working in the legislative process and has built a great reputation, a deservedly great reputation. Part of that is if we're all out there talking on behalf of legislation, we can't talk as though we are the business law section unless we've been through all that triple motion and all that other activity. So unless it's kind of you're working through Amy or Doug, don't go out and talk to legislators and say, oh, I'm part of the business law section and we should do X. It really should just be, if that's your view with the legislature, explain that from yourself. If you're trying to talk about a position from the business law section standpoint, work through Amy and Doug and work with Amy and Doug to make sure that we're staying within the confines of what that triple motion process permits us to do. Key dates. You'll see committee meetings will begin in the fall. The fiscal year just began. This is for the legislature. Committee meetings begin in the fall. The legislative session next year starts in January, so it's an early session. And that's why we need, as the business law section, if we're advancing legislative priorities, to have those ducks lined up much earlier, which is why we're making sure that's done by Labor Day of this year. So we have a number of committees and task forces that have advanced or advancing triple motions to make sure that they have legislation ready to go at the Labor Day meeting to try and get it into next year's legislative session. You'll see that our legislative positions sunset at the end of next June, and then the following legislative session is in the March time period. So there'll be a little bit more cushion next year for working on legislation the following year, the 2027 legislative session. And with that, this is probably the most important slide on this deck. You can ignore my name. I'm here just because I had the pleasure of getting to give this talk. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I am a responsive guy. I'm more than happy to respond. But really, Janine, Marianne, Russell, Amy, and Doug are your key contacts here. And if you have any questions about legislation or anything, they will respond super quickly and be more than happy to help. And with that, that is the end of the legislative update. Unless Amy will tell me I missed some stuff.
Nope, you covered it all in a very short time. A lot of information. Great job. Thanks. And just to say again, Doug and I are available to help you in any piece of that process that Woody outlined. Just let us know. We're here to help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to, I would say both of you, but it's really all of you for all your hard work, and congratulations again on a phenomenal year last year. All right, let's move on to CLE. Carly, do you think
Hi.
you can cover CLE for us? Kathleen
absolutely.
DeSanto is our CLE chair, but she is unavailable, and Carly is going to cover because Carly's really the person that is you'll be working with when you're putting together your CLEs.
Great. Thanks, Deb. So Kathleen wanted me to just remind everybody of the business law section CLE policy, which is on the section's website. It is in the header at the top of the screen. I can share my screen actually. Just a second. Can y'all see that?
Almost. There we go.
Okay. So on this section's website, we now have a drop down for the Continued Legal Education Committee. At the top is your committee chairs. And then if we scroll down, the section's CLE policy, which was updated last July 2024, is there as well. Under the BLS's policy, each substantive committee is required to coordinate with the CLE committee to produce and deliver at least 4 CLE programs that are each at least a 1 hour of CLE credit, which is 50 minutes every year. Although the legislative update, the View from the Bench program, Federal Securities Institute, and the Intellectual Property Symposium do count as one of the 4 required CLE programs for those committees. CLE committees that are presented at the Labor Day retreat, at winter meeting, or during the annual convention do not count towards the policy's 4 program requirements because they do not generate section revenue. The CLE policy also provides that if a subcommittee or a task force covers a substantive topic, it is expected to work with the CLE committee to coordinate at least 1 CLE program during the year. The importance of CLEs is very important to the financial health of the section. Last bar year, as of the end of May, or the end of May, the section had generated almost $40,000 in revenue from those 1 hour CLE programs, which also remain on the section's website and on the Big Bar's website for 18 months for aftermarket purchase. The library also attracts new members to the section who may be future leaders of the section, which generates additional revenue as well. The policy is available on the section's website, and now you can access it from the new dropdown that Tracy has created for us. Members of the CLE committee, under the CLE policy, each of the BLS substantive committees is required to appoint a liaison to the CLE committee, preferably the vice chair or second vice chair of the committee. If you are the chair of the substantive committee, please send the name and contact information of your liaison to Kathleen DeSanto by Friday, July 25th. Or she says, we will assume that the second vice chair of the committee will serve as the liaison. CLE committee meetings. In lieu of an in-person meeting at the Labor Day retreat, the CLE committee, including liaisons, will meet virtually via Zoom on Monday, August 18th from 12:15 to 1:15. You'll receive a calendar invite with the Zoom link, and the agenda will also be posted on the section's webpage. The committee will also meet on October 20th, January 12th, and May 15th, all via Zoom and all at 12:15. So save the dates. These meetings will be in lieu of in-person meetings at winter meeting and at convention. So regarding planning CLEs, now is the time to start scheduling your CLEs for the year. For your substantive committees who have begun to schedule your CLEs, thank you. I've received 3 inquiries so far. Please see the CLE committee webpage for the checklist. We'll go there real quick. So the checklist is down here at the bottom for planning your CLE committee. Your CLE for your committee. Also, sorry. We don't want to oversaturate the market, and we have a steady flow of quality CLE presentations through the years. We need 60 to 70 days to market a CLE to get accreditation for it to be successful and to market it appropriately. So if anybody has any questions on the process for starting a CLE or getting the process started, the course development forum is the first place that you'll want to start after you have a date cleared on the calendar. Myself, Kathleen DeSanto, also manage the calendar, making sure that we're not having multiple CLEs in one day or too many within the week. The course development form is on the section's website, which has also been updated with the new committee chairs contact information as well. So committee chairs, you will be responsible for reviewing these when they're submitted and approving that the information that's provided will assist in achieving the appropriate accreditation from the bar. But if you have any questions about filling out the form, please reach out to me at any point. I'm happy to walk you through the process. The form is set up so it's exactly the way the Big Bar receives the information for accreditation. So it helps save time on both ends to get accreditation through quickly. But again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Perfect. Thank you, Carly. So just to summarize and for emphasis, for count them, 4 CLEs per substantive committee. So we'd like you to pick your dates now. I mean, even if you don't know exactly what's going to happen, you can pick your date and your topic and kind of stick your flag in the sand throughout the calendar year so that we don't have 2 in the same week, or we don't, we're not overlapping and drawing away from each other in terms of participation and attendance. These can be 1-hour Zoom CLEs. It's not a heavy lift to put them together. And I know you have lots of people in your committee who are willing to speak for at least an hour. Some of them you're going to have to cut off because they want to talk so long. So let's get those moving. And then if you are the chair of a task force and your task force relates to a substantive area of law, you also need to put together at least 1 CLE for the year. Best example of those are we had 4 affirmative legislative successes this year. Each of those 4 came from task forces. Each of those 4 task forces will be expected to put together a CLE related to what the new law is that you just passed in the next 12 months, but that takes some time, some planning. So if you can get started on that now, that would be wonderful. Okay. Next on the agenda is Tracy Eller and Dee Dee Bitran on communications and social media generally. Dee Dee, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be able to meet everyone, albeit virtually, but it's still wonderful. And I look forward to seeing everyone shortly at their upcoming retreat. Tracy is incredible, and we would not run without Tracy. So, Tracy, thank you for everything that you do. I watched the prior year's BLS boot camp, and it seems like Tracy goes first because Tracy has been doing this a heck of a lot longer than I have. Tracy, are you okay with going first, and then I'll supplement?
Oh, you're on mute. There we go.
No problem. So I take care of your website and your social media and your blast emails. Every committee has a web page. Many of them are not current, so please go take a look at your committee's page and let me know if you want any changes to it. I'm working through getting all of the leadership updated for the new year. Most of it's updated, but if there's a mistake there, just let me know. I'm still working through that one. We do have an email list for each committee. If you want to send an email out to your committee, let me know. If you want to send it to the whole section, we need to run that up the flagpole. But something just to your committee, all you need to do is let me know what you want it to say and when you want it to go. Some committees have listservs for two-way communication. If you're a new chair, I can set you up as a moderator on that. If you don't have a listserv but want one, let me know and we can set that up for you. Social media, the business law section has a presence on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We still have X, but we don't really use it anymore. If you see one of our posts, please like it and repost. That helps with our impressions. If you're posting something relevant, please tag us on it. And if you see something that would be an interesting repost, please send it to me so I can post it on the accounts. That's it.
Thank you. And so we just wanted to add that we need content for our blog. So please keep that in mind. If I found that if I'm doing a project for a client and I find something interesting, researching, or I find a cool case, sometimes that's worthy of a blog post. So please share it with us. We would love to keep the ball rolling and keep our blog current. So please reach out. And also, we would like to have each substantive committee should send a representative. We want to make sure that we're all in the loop and that you know what we're up to, we know what you're up to, so that we can help amplify your voices in our content. And that's it. Short and sweet. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Perfect. And we'll be sending out this year. I know last year Manny sent a weekly newsletter. We're going to switch that to be bi-weekly, every other week. And in those interim weeks, we'll probably send some of those other weeks we'll send an executive council newsletter. If it's in the executive council newsletter, it's not filler content. It's something you need to actually read, something you need to actually click on. So please pay attention to that one in particular. Okay, let's go to, we may actually meet our timetable here. It's all really going to hang on how much Robert has to share with you about the budget and the budgeting process. But particularly, I asked him to cover the reimbursement policy that applies to our fellows. It applies to our judicial chairs and our academic chairs and our CLE speakers. So Robert, take it away.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robert Barron, your treasurer this year. Let me address just some quick items with respect, first of all, the budget. The budget that the section operates under right now was approved in the past. It was already approved. And so we are now living under the approved budget for the prior year. And this December, the budget committee will be working and finalizing the budget that will start next year. So we're always a year behind in the sense of evaluating a budget for the year to come. And typically the budget committee will finalize the budget internally by December of the year. Then it will go to the big bar for approval, and it's usually hopefully approved in January. Obviously, the budget is incredibly important. We need to be careful to spend funds only that are budgeted within the budget. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me, and then we'll reach out to and review the budget and also check with the chair and the executive committee to make sure that we are living within the budget. There is a reimbursement policy of the section and of the bar. It's found on the business law section website. It's under the category of the executive council. On the executive council page is the written reimbursement policy for the business law section. It addresses travel, speakers, fellows, and the judiciary. And please follow that reimbursement policy. The policy requires certain documentation to be provided for reimbursement. Please send that package when you're seeking for reimbursement to me, the treasurer, and also copy Carly. One logistical request for any reimbursement that you're requesting, please assemble all of your attachments in one document, because what you'll have to provide is the form to fill out, plus receipts and evidence that you spent the funds. And rather than send an email with 6 attachments, just to make life easier and more efficient for Carly, please package your reimbursement request in a document per person with everything attached. Because what has to happen is when you provide a request for reimbursement, the treasurer has to review and approve, Carly has to review and approve, and then once we've approved the reimbursement request, it then needs to go to the bar for the actual funds. So it's a process. And frankly, we're even this week and last week, Carly and I have been working to approve reimbursement requests from the annual meeting. So it's happening now. So thank you. And if you have any questions about the policy, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll probably hang up and call Carly and then come back and act as if I know the answer. But no, seriously, we'll do our best to answer your questions and have this run as smoothly as possible. Just real picture, big picture of the section. We have revenue and we have expenses. Our revenue is basically generated by CLE programs. We just heard about that. The ticket prices that we pay for the various events, and sponsorships. And so sponsorships are incredibly important to finance the lifeblood of the section. So, and we just heard about the activities of the sponsorship committee for that revenue source. And expenses, we all need to be wise with respect to expenses. We need to only expend funds that are in the budget on behalf of the section. So again, we either reduce our expenses and be wise with expenses, or we increase revenue, and hopefully we'll do both of those. With that, Madam Chair, that's my report.
That's the same lecture I got from my husband when I tried to plan our vacation this last year. You can only increase revenue or decrease expenses. Sonny. Okay. All right. So I think that those are the primary areas that we wanted to cover for you all, but I think what we haven't answered for you succinctly quite yet, and I'm going to try to do this, is, okay, you're the chair or the vice chair or the judicial chair or the academic chair of a committee this year. What are you supposed to be doing this year? We've covered, you need to plan 4 CLEs, and that needs to start like yesterday. The one thing that we haven't covered yet is something that Mark Stein started 2 years ago when he was chair, and that's related to succession planning. Every year we have, we have a chair, we have a vice chair, we have a second vice chair, we've got members of the committee, but we're not great at capturing what this committee does and what they've done in the past. And so he asked us to create playbooks to pass down year after year. We started that process. We haven't finished that process. I'd like you all as chairs and vice chairs of your committee to just take a little bit of time, put together a couple pages of what you have done and what you do so that you can pass that down to the next person. We'll give that information to Tracy as you're reviewing your website. Let's put it, it's not a secret. Let's put it on the website so everybody understands what they're supposed to be doing. Because that's the first question I always get from people is, okay, yes, I'd love to serve as second vice chair, but what do I do? And I can't answer that because I don't know what each and every one of the substantive or standing committees does. That one. All right, the third thing is engage your committee members and recruit people to your committee, right? Reach out to, there are 6,500 members of the business law section, and there are many more business lawyers in the community than the 6,500 that we have as members. Recruit them, get them to roll up their sleeves. Many hands make light work. Identify new members and new leaders for your committee and give them opportunities to lead. There's a lot of work that can be done and it can be spread around. You're going to then assign someone to your from your committee to the CLE committee, and you're going to assign someone to the communications committee. You're going to work with the communications committee to feed content from your committee for the biweekly updates. You're going to look at your website, your web page on the website, and you're going to update it and add to it the substance of it. The next thing we'd ask you to do is to engage with our fellows. Every year we have between 6 and 8 fellows. This is our 11th year, I believe, with business law section fellows. Engage with those past fellows, engage with those current fellows, and give them opportunities to come into the fold, get to know everyone on your committee, and help with the work. I think the most important things that you can do for me is to show up and encourage other people to show up. We have only 4 meetings a year. We have BOCA, which, we have annual meeting that was just in BOCA. In June, we have Labor Day, we have January, and we have the Executive Council out of state retreat. Please show up and encourage people to come along with you. And then the last thing is prepare in advance for those in-person meetings. Please give me a heads up if you are going to be presenting a motion at the EC. I don't love to be surprised. And by a heads up, I mean like a number of days in advance, not like a number of minutes in advance. I'd really like to know what you're going to present at the EC. I'm working really hard on learning Robert's Rules of Order, I promise, but I'd really rather not be surprised at our meetings. And then if you have questions, I'm here, Robert's here, Woody's here, Peter's here, Manny is here in spirit, although he's on vacation. We're happy to answer any questions you have, and we thank you very much in advance for all the hard work and participation that will make it a great year this year. Does anyone have any questions? It's 1:01. We did such a good job, y'all. Does anyone have any questions before we conclude this boot camp? Don't be shy. Okay. Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will look forward to seeing each and every one of you at the Labor Day retreat in Marco Island in less than a month? No, more than a month and a half. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.